All right, the 49ers State of the Franchise series continues, and today we have a position group that is the favorite for a lot of people. The defensive line. There they are, Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, the two best players for the 49ers up front. The 49ers need to build around these guys moving forward. It wasn't a great year for the defensive line, but it was an epic year for big number 97 there on the screen. Nick Bosa, Defensive Player of the Year, 18 and a half sacks, one shy of Alden Smith's single season franchise record set back in 2012. That was 19 and a half. Bosa had that record in his sights this season, did not get it, but there's always next year for Nick Bosa, and he just seems to be getting better and better and better. Leaner, meaner, more flexible, and smarter too, as he picks up some of that wisdom now entering his fifth year in the NFL. Nick Bosa might become the highest paid defensive player in NFL history this offseason. He's entering his fifth year option year on the rookie deal. I do not expect him to play on that price tag, which is somewhere between $17 and $18 million. I expect him to play actually on a lower cap hit, but a bigger deal. 49ers will spread out Nick Bosa's cap hit across this new contract and probably a $30 million per year guy. So it's going to be good stuff for Nick Bosa and the 49ers this off season. Here you have defensive line performance. This is in the article up on The Athletic. So go ahead and check that out. The link is in the comment section. It is also in the description. And this right here is the problem. There's way too much red on the chart. Obviously, Nick Bosa is not in the red. Nick Bosa is at the top right here in dark blue. Very good pass rushing grade, very good run defense grade. Nick Bosa is the best defensive player in football. But the defensive ends and the edge rushers, they're listed above the dividing horizontal line. The defensive tackles are below it. There is some blue, a good smattering of blue, especially at the very top from the defensive end. Sansa Ebikam, Charles Omenihu, both decent pass rush grade. Omenihu actually ranked 19th out of qualifying edge rushers in pass rush grade. So he was a decent bookend to Nick Bosa. But where the 49ers didn't have the supporting cast was on the inside. Look at this under the horizontal line. So much red. Armstead is slightly above average, and Michael Dwumfor was slightly above average in pass rush grade. But Dwumfor only had 40 snaps. Armstead had 486, still only about, half of his usual workload because of the plantar fasciitis, the foot injury. So the 49ers need more of Armstead, but mainly they need other guys to do something that's a plus contribution. Givens in the red. Kerry Hyder Jr., who played for this team in 2020, but was mainly a defensive end in 2020 because Bosa got hurt, D Ford got hurt. Hyder's really adaptable, played outside. Hyder played inside this season, wasn't nearly as good for the 49ers. Hassan Ridgeway, hurt early. They couldn't bring him back there at the end of the season. They ran out of return from IR designations. He was okay pass rushing. The run defense wasn't great. Kinlaw, that was a bad situation this year with the knee. Look how low the run defense grade was, 28.8. That's bottom barrel run defense. Actually was a better pass rusher than a run defender. Seems that he's having trouble anchoring against double teams with that knee situation, the fluid buildup, something he just has to manage. But Kinlaw, he's going to be up for that fifth-year option. That's something that the 49ers almost certainly won't pick up, especially at the price tag that it'd be for him. I think around $15 million. Brandon Ayuk, drafted the same year. They're going to pick up Ayuk's fifth-year option this May. I don't think they're going to pick up Javon Kinlaw's, and you could see how bad the metrics are. T.Y. McGill, he had some juice, but the overall grades still not great. McGill, he was a guy that they picked up from Minnesota. He was on Minnesota's offseason roster, then was cut. Then the 49ers were able to add T.Y. McGill to their practice squad. They needed some more interior pass rushing depth. He gave them a little bit of a spark. But again, this is aggregate kind of stuff. 216 snaps. It wasn't great for him. And Keem Spence, also not great for him, more of the nose tackle type. Just that interior line was a problem. And that's the 49ers' biggest defensive need is interior pass rush. And you could see it illustrated down on the screen below me. In 2019, when they were all world pass rush, they obviously had DeForest Buckner. They also had DJ Jones. I think people might be overvaluing Buckner, undervaluing DJ Jones a little bit, but they had so many pieces that had the ability to just muscle up front, take the responsibility that was given to them, and that's added responsibility in the wide nine. I talk about this a lot. The wide nine is stretched out. It's there so your edge rushers have more room for their speed rush, but it leaves guys on the inside on bigger islands. And if guys are on bigger islands, well, they have to be more athletic. They have to be stronger. They just have to be better football players. They have to be Ferraris up front to be able to handle it. And the 49ers, I mean, when you look at something like this, you're saying, these defensive tackles might not have been handling that wide nine too well. DJ Jones handled it well, and Eric Armstead still does it. Don't get it twisted. Eric Armstead's a really good football player. He had the foot injury this year, so he didn't play enough. But Armstead is such a valuable piece because he can deliver those interior snaps. He can rush from the inside. He could take up double teams. He could stop the run. He watches more tape than anybody, and that sets the table for Nick Bosa and others. You have to earn the right to rush the passer by stopping the run. And, one reason this might be confusing to some people, you see some of these struggles and you say, well, I thought the 49ers were number 2 in run defense in the NFL. And they were, behind only Tennessee. But there's other components to the defense. It's not just this defensive line that you see up here on the screen. The 49ers had the best linebacking crew in football. They had some of the best tackling DBs in football. Tashawn Gibson, Charvarius Ward, both in the top 2 at safety and cornerback, their respective positions in terms of tackling. And Jimmy Ward, obviously, always a good tackler. So the 49ers relied more on the back end to tackle this year. I have this graphic in the piece. This is a good one. These are the 49ers D-line metrics this year. Adjusted line yards is like the overall run defense metric to say, okay, hey, here, how the 49ers doing on run defense? And you look at it and you say, okay, wait, they're number 2 in overall run defense, but a power success rate, which is their success percentage on 3rd and 4th and short against runs that they presumably know are coming, and their stuff percentage, how often do they stop an opponent at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage? Those aren't that great, but their second level yards and their open field yard allowance is really good, which means they're tackling really well on the second level. They're tackling really well in the open field, but that is the driver of how their defense is doing overall against the run, not the defensive line. Defensive line sack rate was much better in years past, right? Number 2 in 2019. It was number 16 this year. So despite the fact that Nick Bosa was a complete monster, as you can see here, great pass rush rate, great run defense grade, 18.5 sacks, the 49ers still languished overall in the D-line metrics, and that's because of the rest of the unit that they have to get stronger this offseason. But I will say this, Nick Bosa, more impressive than you thought. Where's Nick? Let's get him back up on the picture. I mean, it was a sensational year, even more impressive than I think the surface level numbers indicate, given the fact that people just assume that he had a good supporting cast because it's the 49ers D-line. But I don't think that was necessarily the case this year. I think that Bosa can get a lot better next year just if that supporting cast gets better around him. So what can the 49ers do? Well, can they get a bookend for Nick Bosa? You bet they can get a bookend for Nick Bosa. Look at this. Sansom Ebukam, Charles Omenihu, Jordan Willis, all of those guys pending free agents. Do you bring back one of them? Do you bring back 2 of them? Do you bring back all 3? None of them? I don't know at this point. We'll see what the 49ers have their eyes on. There are a few defensive ends on the free agent market that might be available to plug some good holes for the 49ers. You have Robert Quinn. I know these are older guys, veteran guys. Justin Houston, 34 years old. He's a pending free agent. The Jets are planning to cut Carl Lawson. That might be a good edge rusher in this scheme. Robert Saleh thought he fit. He might fit in that 49ers 4-3. Marcus Davenport. Arden Key is scheduled to be a free agent. Arden Key, 6.5 sacks for the 49ers a couple of years ago, 2021 now. That is now 2 years ago. Then he signed for a little bit more money with Jacksonville, had 4.5 sacks last year. The Jags are loaded with defensive end talent, so Arden Key might be somebody they decide not to pay. Again, back down to 4.5 sacks this past year. That could make him a little bit more affordable. I think that's exactly where Sansom Ebukam ended up for the 49ers. And Key obviously fit really well as an interior and exterior guy for the 49ers with all the games and all the creative alignments that Chris Kasarik runs, taking defensive ends, lining them up over guards on the interior. So that's all a possibility. And then there's Cleveland Farrell from the Raiders. He is set to be a free agent. This would just be an auxiliary rushing piece. But it reminds me a lot of Arden Key, in that Key didn't do anything while he was with the Raiders. Then Chris Kacerek got his hands on him and made him some money. 6.5 sacks of the 49ers later, he signed with Jacksonville. So Pharrell, maybe as a guy that you use to bolster the room, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the 49ers depth chart here up on the screen so you can get a little bit of an idea of where they have room, because there's going to be, I think, plenty of it on this roster at the defensive line position. So you talk about bookend for Bosa, and you look at the depth chart and you go down here to the D-line room. I'm going to highlight this in blue for you. Look how much room there is. They like to carry 10 on the 53 / practice squad, maybe 11. They're going to bring 11 or 12 into training camp, but they're going to carry almost all of them. And if they bring in more than that, if they bring in like 14, which also is possible, then they'll want to carry the vast majority of those guys, 10 or 11, maybe even 12, onto the team during the season, whether it be through the 53 or the practice squad. So right now you only have 6 bodies. You have Bosa, Armstead, Kinlaw, Drake Jackson, going to talk about him in a bit. Kalia Davis, going to talk about him in a bit, definitely, and Alex Barrett. So there is room to make some moves, to execute some signings if you are the San Francisco 49ers this offseason. Now, I talked about some of the potential additions that we might see from the 49ers, some free agents that could be of interest to them. Justin Houston, rotational pass rusher. Remember, the 49ers at this point in his career, I would think that Justin Houston's going to be a specialist, right? You're not going to have him out there probably as many snaps as a guy like Nick Bosa or Eric Armstead if he's healthy. But I really do think that there is potential value in bringing in a veteran. Philadelphia actually saw the benefit of this throughout most of this season up until they had 0 sacks in the Super Bowl yesterday. But we'll save that story for another day. But, Doomerville in 2017 for the 49ers, he was older even. I think Doomerville might have been 35, 36, maybe even 37 years old, maybe even 38. Doomerville was getting up there in age. But Justin Houston, 34, he's still got some juice, right? You look at somebody like Robert Quinn, who actually played for Philadelphia this year. These are guys that you can probably get on relatively affordable deals against the cap to give the pass rush a little bit of a boost opposite Nick Bosa. I know the 49ers are trying to play money ball with it. That's what they did with Charles Omenihu. That's what they did with Jordan Willis. It's even what they did with Samson Ebukam at $6 million a year. And maybe you do bring one of those guys back. Again, Omenihu was in the top 20 of edge rushers, but you need waves of guys. You need multiple bodies at that edge rusher position. And, you need more than that as well. It's not just about that edge rush. I think that I already established that a little bit earlier when I said that the biggest need is that interior pass rush. And that interior rush, there are going to be potential availabilities on the market for the interior rush as well. Javon Hargrave, awesome player for Philadelphia. We'll see if they bring him back, but his contract's going to expire. Matthew Ioannidis, this is good. He's a guy with 25-plus career sacks, played out on the East Coast. Ioannidis could be a good defensive tackle type that's able to rush the passer, give the 49ers some juice that they currently don't have. Taven Bryan, David Onyemata, the Saints rusher who has actually terrorized the 49ers before. Dalvin Tomlinson will be available potentially if he doesn't get re-signed. These are all, most of the guys I just listed, a little bit of more of a blue chip upper tier vibe to these type of players. And it's a question of, are the 49ers going to be willing to break out the checkbook at defensive tackle? Maybe they won't be. But at some level, there has to be some concern from the 49ers over all of this red up on the screen down at the bottom. That's a whole lot of red that I'm moving my cursor around. And the problem is that they don't have premier draft picks. They don't pick until late in the 3rd round. For these man strength type of positions like defensive line, you're not looking at early return on investment if you're drafting in the lower rounds in all likelihood. Yeah, DJ Jones was a 6th rounder, but it took him a couple years to pan out, a few years even to truly pan out. 2019, he really started to break out, but that was 3 years into his career. Edge rushers, same thing. You usually have to use a premier draft pick to really, feel that you're going to get that immediate return on investment. And even then, it's no guarantee. So you either go bargain bin hunting, which Chris Kacerek has done so well with, right, as the 49ers defensive line coach. You look at guys like Kerry Hyder. You can go up and down the 49ers list of defensive linemen over the past several seasons, and Kacerek has done an A-plus job developing these guys. So you can go bargain bin shopping, or you can go for a slightly more premier player, and we'll see if any of the names that I listed do make it through to free agency in a way that the 49ers can, make a jump at. But whichever way you decide to skin the cat, you have to look at this, and you have to find more blue on the chart next season. That's absolutely mandatory for the 49ers. So those are the 49ers potential free agent additions. I should have put that title up a little bit earlier. They're trying to find that bookend for Bosa. And, even more importantly, since this line is so fungible, since guys on the outside are going to line up on the inside and vice versa, you need that interior pass rush to help out Bosa and Eric Armstead. And, don't forget Eric Armstead. He is a force. 49ers will hope for more health from him next season, because, lining up on the inside, the ability to flex outside, so important for the positional adaptability of this defensive line. Looking to rearm itself, move back up into those rankings, because if the 49ers can do that defensively, if this defensive line can be back in the top 5 like it finished the 2021 season, you already have the best linebackers in football. And that secondary, I think, is top 5 as well, especially if you could find, a man, Dion or Lenore playing good football at the end of the season. But look at, we saw A.J. Brown do some stuff yesterday against the Chiefs. 49ers held the Eagles, their top 2 cornerbacks held the Eagles in the NFC Championship game despite not having a supporting offense without a quarterback. Lenore and Charvarius Ward held the Eagles to 2 catches for 16 yards. So the 49ers are cooking with gas, I think, in the back 7 now. Ironically, it's a coverage over rush unit now. You could add that rush back into things. This was already the number 1 defense in the NFL. So on some level, we're nitpicking, but on some level, we're not. But you add some juice to that pass rush again that it used to have, which I think it's fully capable of rediscovering. This could be a historic defense if the 49ers play their cards right in 2023. And I'll leave you with that thought. 49ers D-line has the potential to be historic moving forward, but they have to pull the right strings this offseason. All right, thanks, everybody. Take care.